Diana, I got your number from your resume on LinkedIn. My name is Sarah, and I'm an old student of. And like you, we had a relationship. I don't know the circumstances of your relationship with him, but it concerns me to see his behavior continue long after I knew him. I'm curious if you would be willing to talk to me about your experience. If not, I respect that.
Sarah, I am at a loss of words, but also have so much to say. Yes, I would love to talk to you about this. Were you a student in Iowa? This is Diana.
This is Sarah.
And this is Blooming After Grooming, our podcast.
Hi.
Hi, this is our first recording since launching the podcast. Because we're like professional now, kind of.
Yes. No, we're not. But we've really appreciated all the people saying that we sound professional, because that is something that I did not expect.
No, I expected a lot of, oh, buddy, it'll get better. You know, what a great start. I look forward to you guys finding your footing. I don't know. Diana, I have issues with perfectionism. I have issues with holding myself to high standards. So yes, I was pleasantly surprised. I feel like people are doing well. I had a friend just text me quoting me from one of the episodes at me, and it took me like too long to figure out what was happening. I was like, why is she texting me these random words? And I was like, oh, that's something I said in one of the episodes. Been a lot of good love coming in.
Yeah.
And it's been very nice. And I've enjoyed like hearing from your people and sharing with you stuff from my people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been very, very nice to hear the feedback that we've gotten. Sarah, I had a little bit of an opportunity to thank our listeners when I introduced the last episode, the Sliding Doors episode. So is there anything else maybe you want to say before we get into this week's episode?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I just appreciate people giving it a listen. It's a heavy subject. I guess I'm just appreciative that people are giving us a shot. There's a lot of amazing podcasts in the world that, you know, are competing for everyone's time and attention. And there's a lot going on in the world competing for people's time and attention right now. And so I guess I just appreciate anyone carving out any time to listen to you and I talk about an important subject. So thank you.
Yes, thank you. And the sound quality will improve slowly each episode. We get a little bit better, and I'm sure we'll just continue to get better. I was going to mention also to our listeners that, and to you, Sarah, because I don't know if you realize, but I was listening to our latest episode that came out today at the time of this recording. It is Monday, June 9th. And it was a Sliding Doors episode. And the timing of the outro music was way early. So we're still like talking about stuff. And
God
it's
damn
like,
it.
do 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 do.
What was happening?
So
oh man,
I had to delete the episode. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And then
it was being glitched. So apologies to. So we're learning. But yeah, just wanted to clarify if anyone was wondering if that was on purpose. It was not. But now the re-edited one is out there. Okay. Anyway, let's get into episode 4. Nope. Okay, let's get into this week's episode. Which
that's how it's done.
Today, we are talking about our aha moments, which our listeners have heard us kind of mention here and there over the first few episodes. Sarah, how would you define, not behind, how would you define an aha moment?
Well, I wouldn't behind it, that's for sure. Yeah, I don't know when I started saying aha moment, but I you know, it's like your light bulb moment. Some people call it like a download, you know, from the universe, or yeah, just the kind of fog lifts, just like a moment where something just suddenly becomes very clear to you. And I think we've all experienced it in some way or another. And, you know, whether it's relationships or realizing your job's really toxic, or, you know, realizing your own patterns, right? Like sometimes your aha moment is like, oh, fuck, I've got a problem,
Yeah.
or I am the problem, right? Uh, so yeah, I think I just kind of started using it in reference to, yeah, my moment when I kind of realized, yeah, the full scope of what had happened. Because I think, you and I both already talked about kind of at the time that the, ensnarements were happening, and they ended to a certain extent, understanding that the situation had been fucked up and had been inappropriate and weird. Um, but for me, I kind of classify the aha moment is when I finally realized I was not a participant in what happened. That for me was the aha moment of realizing it wasn't my shame to carry. I wasn't the one that was guilty. That took a really long time. Like, I would say pretty quickly after I got away from him, I was like, that was gross and that was weird and that was inappropriate. But I still blamed myself for a lot
Yeah.
of it. And I still felt responsible for not stopping it or not being quote unquote smart enough. Yeah. So for me, my aha moment was just realizing, oh, no, this happened to you. This is not something you participated or condoned to happen. I don't know. Would you agree with that, Diana? Like, is that how you would define an aha moment? Do you have a preferred term besides
I
aha?
like no, I say aha moment. I'll also sometimes say the veil was lifted or
Mm,
something like that. But yeah, I think what does make an aha moment different. We did talk in our last episode about both of us feeling that feeling of knowing that it wasn't a good relationship, like a great situation to
mm,
be in, but not fully understanding, like you said, the scope of what that situation was. It wasn't just a bad relationship, it was abuse, manipulation, grooming. And also, I think it's aha because literally it feels like a oh my god, like it slaps you in the face. At least it did for
yeah.
me. So that is also why I like to refer to it as an aha moment.
Yeah. And I think it does feel like a slap in the face. And it comes on sudden. And it sounds silly because it's not sudden. It took me 18 years. That's not sudden. It took 18 years. But that moment to moment, like minute to minute experience was literally like my whole brain and body shifted gears. Like it was just like boop, 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 boop. And it was like my body was like, nope, we're done. We're done telling ourselves this story. We're done pretending this didn't happen. Ka-chunk. Now we're in a different gear. And it was just like an instantaneous shift. It was a very strange experience. I can't say that I have ever experienced anything like my aha moment about this. Did it feel that visceral for you?
It definitely did. But leading up to the aha moment, there were other moments that felt like it was being chipped away. Like I was,
Mm.
it was the message was starting to seep in, but not completely. And ultimately I did have that aha moment, but I do recall certain parts of my life or certain conversations that helped lead to that. And I know like I was with the teacher for a longer time than you, so I think I had maybe more time for those kinds of things, those kinds of breadcrumbs to be left. Do you remember anything like that before your big aha moment? Like, were there other things that kind of came up that
Yeah.
really got you thinking, "Oh no, this was way more complicated than I ever even realized"?
It's it's interesting because I look back and I think about just kind of these moments that seem like they'd be obvious answer that question, like the Me Too movement, right? When that started. And I remember everybody was writing like hashtag Me Too on social media, like if you'd experienced something. And I remember posting like hashtag Me Too, but in my mind thinking about like, being hollered at on the streets and like literally having strange men like, dude, I once got chased down the street when I lived somewhere and had to like run into a hospital to get like safety because this dude was trying to like chase me down in the middle of broad
Oh my
daylight.
god,
Like,
that's terrifying. I don't think I
yeah,
knew
and like,
that.
yeah, it was pretty scary. And like, when I lived up in the cities, like, I had a car pull up like cut me off on the sidewalk and try to get me into the car to like have sex with him for money. Like just stuff like
Oh my God.
scary stuff, but like
Yeah.
more that kind of like strangers. And it's funny to me now to think back that like no part of my brain was like, oh yeah, you were groomed and sexually abused by your high school teacher. My brain was just going to those moments that were very clearly scary in the moment. Whereas I feel like this kind of this kind of abuse, like grooming, I feel like you don't realize how scary it is until you're out of it, right? Like you don't feel scared in the moment. And then it's years later, you look back and you're like, oh my God, that was really scary. And that was really dangerous. And nobody knew where I was at because I was lying to everybody. And that person had all this control over me. And like all these things could have gone wrong. And all these things did go wrong. Yeah. So I think there were some really obvious moments that I feel like I wasn't ready to like see it for what it was. But I definitely would get really uncomfortable. I would say the triggery stuff for me that kind of started to chip away was I have a lot of friends that are teachers. And as people are talking, there would just be stories that would come up about, oh, did you hear about this teacher? He got fired because he was, fooling around with the student or whatever. And they're not like making jokes about it. Like they weren't being lighthearted about it, but like it just coming up in conversation would make me like my heart would start racing and I would start getting like sweaty and start feeling really uncomfortable.
And they knew about
at that
the
point,
teacher?
maybe some of them knew, but not a lot, I would say. And if I had told any of them at that point, I was very much still telling that story of, well, I had an affair with my teacher.
Yeah.
That was the version that I had been telling people and myself, right? At that point was very like a weird, I don't know, fairy tale dusted, still kind of bullshitty protective version.
Yeah. You're
And then
protecting yourself.
honestly, I feel like it was watching Election happened very quickly before my aha moment, and my husband had picked it. I think I mentioned that in the episode, and he didn't know what it was about. I don't think he'd ever seen it before. But I remember when we were watching it, like the whole time I was just like I just felt so stressed out the whole time watching it. And I feel like that was kind of another moment of my body being like, ooh, girl, this dam
There's
is
something
about
here
to break.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm sure there was other things along the way, but those are the ones that kind of stand out for me. Do you have specifics for yourself?
I knew probably 2 years before I left him that I was not going to end up with him.
Mm-hmm.
I had applied and got into graduate school to be a school counselor. And I should also mention that he especially liked to just tell me all the hot gauze and all the drama and complain to me about the school counselors in particular. And I was going to school to be a school counselor. So I got into grad school and I remember feeling like I didn't want him to be part of the pre-admissions workshop, which is like this day that the applicants go and do like this day-long interview with faculty and other students and doctoral students. And you can bring like your significant other or a family member or someone. And I wanted him to be part of it. And I remember he was just like really resistant to it. And there was part of me that was relieved that he wasn't going to be coming because, oh, yes. Oh, dude, something just, yeah. Okay. This is the night I slept in my car. We got into some big fight. And the next day I had this pre-admissions workshop, day-long interview to get into graduate school, to get into this program.
And you had to sleep in your car the night before.
Yes. And whatever happened,
Fabulous
the situation was so bad that I was like, you know what? I'm going to spend the night in my car on campus and get ready in the bathrooms, which I did, then stay here with this person. And so I remember being in the program. I'm still friends with a couple of some of the women who I met that day, and like seeing them with their partners and their husbands and their people. And there's just this feeling of like, I don't know, it's just really confusing because I had wanted him to be there, but then there was part of me that was like, I'd be embarrassed if he was here.
Yeah.
Because he's
16 years older than you.
Yeah.
And looks like a potato wearing pleated pants. Girl, tell me I'm wrong.
You're not. Potatoes are pretty cute. So there's nothing we can compare him to that I don't feel bad for the thing that
I
we are
know. We used to
comparing him
call him
to.
a toad, and I used to call my dog Toad, so then that made me sad, so I didn't want to do that anymore.
And toads
Potatoes
are
are
adorable.
I love toads, and potatoes, I like potatoes.
He's just a disgusting
It's
human,
true.
miscreant piece of shit. Anyway, so that was early on something that just kind of stayed with me, is like, what is this feeling? I want him here. I want what I'm seeing, which is like people my age with their partners their age being supported. I wanted that. And I was growing up. Like I was outgrowing him. I was growing up. I was meeting other people. I was hearing different perspectives. I was taking service trips and learning about things like structural racism and bringing that back and realizing, oh, the person I'm with is actually pretty racist and says some pretty fucked up shit. And just, yeah, becoming an adult. And I remember not really wanting him to come around when, like, no longer there was a time early on, like, I wanted him to be part of that life, but then there came a time where I remember I did not want him to be part of my grad school life or meet my friends, because I was worried that they were going to think she doesn't understand boundaries. She's going to start dating students when she's a school counselor.
Mm.
So I was more worried that they were going to be like judging me or thinking that like so that also, yeah, exactly. So that was also part of like, oh, well, then that something's wrong with this. Like, this was a wrong thing.
Yeah, well, and I think sometimes it's easier for us. I feel like it's so hard to see yourself as a victim. Okay, I shouldn't say that. For some people, it's so hard to see yourself as a victim. Some people really enjoy that role and like to play that card. But I feel like you don't want to see yourself as a victim in certain situations sometimes. I think you and I have very similar personality types. Um, and then all of a sudden when you're put in a position like that where it's like, oh, I would never want to do that to somebody else. Like your empathy for an imaginary other person is stronger than your empathy for yourself, which is not good. Like, because I remember having that with a relationship I was in, the abusive one I was in when I was in my 20s. And at one point that guy I was dating like wanted to have a kid. And I remember saying like, I would never bring a child into this household. I would never ever put a kid in this house and make them put up with the yelling and the fighting and the berating and the belittling. And I remember my friend being like, why are you protecting a kid that doesn't exist more than you're protecting yourself? And so for me, this seems like a very similar moment of like, like you are so worried about being a negative impact on another kid's life, and you're not worried about how you were the kid that got negatively impacted yet. Like you hadn't like shifted that perspective yet.
And I didn't for a really long time. So that was, the graduate school was definitely played a big part in helping me mature. And by that also putting me in a place mentally to start seeing what the situation was, which is not a relationship, unhealthy or unhealthy. It was abuse. It was manipulation. It was ensnarement.
Yeah. Which I'm sure is partially why he didn't want you to do it, right? Like trying to keep you small, he knew was a way to keep you under his control, So I'm sure that's also part of the reason he tried to belittle what you were doing, because he knew, if you broaden your horizons, if you educated yourself, if you were surrounded by different people, the likelihood of you figuring out that you were in a bad situation kept going up. And he wasn't wrong, like there's a reason abusers isolate their victims. It's to prevent this, right? It's to prevent them finding other people. It's to prevent them from learning and growing and figuring out their game, So good for you for, persevering and educating yourself and being open to those icky moments, I guess, and letting them kind of wash over you. Because it would have been very easy if you just be like, whatever, and just keep
Yeah.
down that path,
And I want to acknowledge too that higher education really is a privilege. And
hmm
it was not easy for me to attain, but I really wonder sometimes, like, if I had just graduated high school and had like wasn't working towards anything for myself,
hmm
would I have just gotten swept up and been like, oh well, this is the person I'm with and they're gonna support me now, and not seeing anything outside of what I know. And I
Yeah.
do think a lot of the times, especially in more isolated rural communities or communities where there's just not a lot of options for people, that it's easier for that to happen.
Oh, for sure. And God forbid you get pregnant. You're done.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like for so many people, the societal guilt on parents to stay together, let alone the financial part of it. I mean, that was a huge reason I ended up staying in my emotionally abusive relationship for so long in my 20s is like I didn't have any money. I had no money. Like I owed so much in debt from college. Like I got no financial aid. I had so much debt. I literally was living like after student loans, I think I had literally $10,000 a year to live off of. That was for everything. Like food,
Yeah.
shelter, transportation. I couldn't pay any of the bills. So like the guy I was dating with, like he paid our rent, he paid for most of the food. Like I pretty much had enough money to literally ride the bus to work. That's not a joke. I had enough money to pay my student loans and ride the bus. Like that was it. So I think that's something for a lot of people to remember too, is I think it's very easy to judge people when they are in abusive situations or when they're in bad situations. Like, well, why didn't they just leave? Why didn't they just this? Why didn't they just that? It's like, dude, you don't know that person's situation. And if you're like dead broke and you don't have anywhere to go, or you don't think you have anywhere to go, what are you supposed to do? Like end up on the fucking streets? Like, I mean, that happens to people. Like, that's terrifying. And, I think a lot of times it can sadly seem safer or literally be safer to stay in a bad situation than end up homeless, right? Where something else terrible could befall you. So, yeah, I think that's a good reminder. Like, both of us, like, this terrible thing happened to us, but we also have been very privileged of we have really strong support systems, and we have had people that have like caught us when we needed to be caught, and we were both were able to attain higher education and advance ourselves out of different situations because not everybody has that.
I'm not trying to say that everyone must go to college, and I know
No.
college isn't for everyone, but I will say that there is something to the more education you receive, you earn, the more options you have. And Sarah, it's almost like there's this thing called the patriarchy that just doesn't want women to have education so that they're tied to a husband. But that's
Yeah.
a different episode.
I mean,
So
I say this to my coworker. We get in these conversations a lot where I'm like, so if you're in a group or a religion or some kind of upbringing where the message is that girls don't need education, that's a fucking red flag. That's because they're trying to keep you from getting smart enough to realize that you're being fucking screwed over and that
yes,
you're being manipulated and that you're probably in a
that
cult.
part.
You're
Uh-huh.
probably in a cult. So, yeah, and I think, if the teacher had had his way, neither one of us would have gone to college. I mean, he literally tried to talk me out of it because it was just control. Like it was just I want to keep you like a little butterfly in a glass jar and just the only thing you can see is me. So you will continue to think that I am awesome and the sun and moon rises out of my butt. That was the whole goal. It's my rant. Um, Back to the aha moments.
Yes.
Can you can you describe your aha moment, your thinning of the veil moment to us? What came to you? What fell away? Were you eating a burrito at the time? I just ate a burrito, so that's why I asked the question because it was really good and it's kind of stuck in my head now.
I was not eating a burrito at the time.
Oh,
I
that's
know
a damn
that.
shame.
Truly. You know what though? I was in my car, so I think it would have been hard to eat a burrito.
Yeah.
But I do remember I was on my way home from work. So I worked in the suburbs and lived in Chicago. So I had a nice long ass commute where I had a lot of time to decompress and reflect on the day and all that stuff. And I was driving home And it was like day 2 or 3 after Evan Rachel Wood named her abuser. I should just say his name is Brian Warner, is her abuser. Why am I trying to protect that guy? I'm not.
Yeah, what are you doing right now?
I don't know. See, that's what I mean. Like, Evan Rachel Wood named her abuser Brian Warner, and the world knows him as Marilyn Manson. So a lot of people gave her so much shit and were saying it was like 2 days of reading things like, well, what did she expect? It's Marilyn Manson, and how did she not know? And blah, 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 blah. And I remember just feeling for her and like just feeling defensive and thinking she was a kid who wanted to be whoever this person wanted her to be. This older man wanted her to be anything for him so that he would want to be with her. And then it, like I said earlier, like it felt like a slap in the face. It felt like just this clarity of, oh, this happened to me. This is why I'm feeling this way. Feeling so much empathy for Evan Rachel Wood right now. And what I did after that moment is something we could talk about in a bit. But Sarah, do you remember your aha moment?
I do. Sidebar, I think the idea of telling somebody what did she expect, he's Marilyn Manson, is like, oh, he shopped at Hot Topic. So of course he is a groomer and a sexual offender. That's insane.
It makes no sense. It makes no sense. But people want to blame her. They wanted to blame her.
Yeah. Oh, he wears makeup. He must be a monster. What the fuck are you talking about? Yes, I vividly remember my aha moment. It was kind of coming out of COVID times, I guess, right? It was like 2021, 2022, whatever. Early post-ish COVID existence.
That was a
And
very cute hiccup.
I'm so sorry. It was a little dainty lady hiccup. And I was in an online group. And my friends always kind of like joked and called it like my online coven. But it was like a spiritual group, and it was like a group of women, and there was like weekly exercises of, well, I should say there was kind of like these sessions. So you would sign up for like different chunks of time, and each session had like a theme. So like one was like connecting with your ancestors, and like another session was maybe like connecting with nature, and this session was about healing, something about like love and sexuality and healing like sexual trauma. And I remember seeing the session pop up as an offering and being like, ooh, I don't want to do that. And I was like, you should probably do it then. Like the fact that you just had such a visceral reaction to that maybe means that you need to get some stuff figured out. And I was about to get married. And so I was like, maybe this is a good idea. This is a good time, right? To kind of flush out the old spiritual pipes, as it were, of love's come and gone.
You got some great metaphors. Emotional Tums, balm for the soul.
Oh God. And so I was in this group, and it was yeah, so then there's like weekly homework. So some of it was write down, for every partner you've had, you're going to like tie a knot and a rope, and then you're going to like burn the rope, and it's like a ceremony to help you like let go, whatever. So a lot of it was about just acknowledging paths that have crossed your path along the way and trying to kind of heal it, and talking about love, trauma, sex, all these things. And so we would meet weekly and like have conversations, and then we do our rituals on our own, and then kind of come back the next week and talk about it. But the homework assignment that week was to make like a shower salt sugar rub, right? So it was like, I don't fucking know, put some sugar in a jar with orange peel and olive oil or something. It wasn't anything crazy, just like a normal sugar rub. But then the idea is that you were supposed to like take a shower and scrub it on your body with intention, and think about, letting, pretty much like washing your body of the people that you had given your body to in the past. And girl, I was just like, I'm going to go take this bougie shower. It's going to be so nice. I had like music playing. I was like, oh, my skin is going to be so soft. I wasn't thinking anything of it. No big deal. And I was like taking the shower, and I was using the scrub, and I was standing there and like feeling the salt or the sugar scrub like slough off of my skin. And it was literally like, boom, like a lightning bolt shot into my brain. And it was like, it wasn't your fault. You were groomed. Like this happened to you. Like it was such a strangely cliche like response. Like it just felt so obvious and like, oh, you're gonna cleanse yourself of this. And it was like I did. I literally just like, but what I cleansed myself of was the lie I was telling myself. Like it just fell off. Like right in that moment in the shower, like my body was just like, we're done. We can't carry it anymore. We can't hold it anymore. We're done. And I just started bawling. Like I lost it. I think I sat on the floor of the shower for like 45 minutes and just cried. Like it was such an intense, it was just so intense. Like there was no denying it. And I wish I could remember better, like what I did when I got out of the, because I'm sure I was just a wreck, and I'm sure my husband was like,
Yeah.
"What the hell just happened?" Like, I don't. It was so. I feel like there's like my life before that moment and my life after that moment. Like it feels like such a distinct line for me in my existence. Like, yeah, it was really weird moment. So when people say download, I now like feel like I kind of get it where it's like I literally felt like I had like a thunderbolt hit my head or something. Like it was very strange.
Wow. That's so powerful. Did you just come out of the broom closet?
I mean, I'm a little witchy. I would say I am not a dedicated. I'm not as badass as some witchy gals that I know, but I do
Stop
like me some.
comparing yourself, Sarah. I'm going to come into that computer screen and shake you. I said scream. That's right.
Well, I'm just saying, like some people are like doing their homework, right? Like they're fucking beep bop booping, and I come to it sometimes and I let it go sometimes. But yeah, I like my witchy shit. I think that it's all kind of the same thing, right? Religion. Like I have some friends that are super like, oh, you're fucking into witchcraft. That's so stupid. I'm like, you go to fucking Catholic church where they burn incense and they pretend to drink blood and eat body parts, dude.
The body.
And they'd be dipping babies' heads in water and shit and being like, now they won't
That's
go
all
to hell.
witchcraft.
Like,
they chant. It is witchcraft.
Y'all be chanting. Y'all be lighting motherfucking candles. It's all the same goddamn thing.
Truly.
My flavor just doesn't come with organized pedophilia and eradication of cultures and genocide and war. So I don't know. Go fuck yourselves. So yes, I am not a religious person, but I think there is value in ritual. Whatever you're like, I'm not anti. Like if you have a religion, that's your business. You know, enjoy yourself. But I do think there is something powerful about ritual, and I think especially American culture, there is none. It sucks. We don't mark life occasions well. So I think if you can find a way, either if it's your church or it's on your own, to really, set intentions or let go of things that aren't serving you, I think are really powerful. And for me, it really like fostered this experience. And I have wondered, like, if I hadn't taken that course, that online class, and if I hadn't signed up for that course I didn't want to take, would you and I be talking right now?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know that we would.
You were brave. You were in an uncomfortable situation when you had that reaction, and you did a brave thing. It paid off. Hey. Hey, friend.
Well, some would say then witchcraft does work, because look at us now, bitch. What's up?
What's up? Yeah, we were delighted to find out that we were both into witchy things. So even if you don't remember what you did right afterwards, now that you had this like awareness, you had this clarity, what did you do with it?
I found you the very next day.
Did you? Oh, yeah.
It was the very next day. I remember thinking in the shower, there's another one. Part. No, I knew. I was like, and I thought of, I don't know if we've gone into this yet. I feel like we have, but also we've recorded so many things so many times that I can't remember anymore. I had tried to catfish you when you were in high school via MySpace because I was trying to find the teacher, and your post about him came up. And I remember at the time thinking, this is exactly how I would have talked about him if social media had existed when I was in high school. And I like made a fake account and I tried to be like, oh, I used to be one of his students. He's a super cool teacher, thinking that somehow you would talk to me and that I would figure out you were in a secret relationship with him and then I'd get him arrested. It was this whole dream I had. It didn't work. And then I found it the next day. So, and when I was taking the shower and I had my aha moment, I feel like I immediately was like, there's another one. And I remember I was like, okay, who was that girl I found on MySpace? Like my brain like went to you like immediately, but I didn't remember your name because it had been like 17 years or something since I had tried to get a hold of you. Yeah. And then the very next day I went to work and I just started cyber stalking him again and found your name attached to his on the internet. And then I looked up where you went to school and figured out the year you graduated and did the math of figuring out that he would have been your teacher. And I was like, this motherfucker. This motherfucker. And I knew, like, there was no doubt in my mind. Like, I was like, obviously, you don't do this and then just go start dating age appropriate people. That's just not what fucking happens. And so, and then I found your phone number on LinkedIn. And the rest, as they say, dear listener, is history.
It's the
That's
next
what I
episode.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I just
we're
went
gonna
into
talk.
full activation mode, which is what I do. I am a very, I'm really helpful in an emergency. I will say that. I get activated like a motherfucker. So that's what I did.
I think our next episode is going to be a little bit more about how we found each other and meeting and everything.
Diana, what did you do? Because you alluded before that you're like, oh, I'll talk about it in a minute. What did you do after your aha moment? I didn't mean to make that mocking voice. It's just what happened.
That is what I sound like. This is a radio voice that I use.
This is my real voice.
So after I had that moment, there's two things that I really remember. I remember going to my colleague. I think I mentioned him in one of the last episodes that he came and found me, and because I had told him and another colleague, I'm going to call them Matt and Nick.
Sure.
Matt and Nick. So I had told Matt, who is a school counselor, and Nick, who is a school social worker. We were in Nick's office at the end of the day one day. We were all in the party planning committee. So we were talking about that, but also just dicking around. And we were talking about what's one of your secrets that nobody knows about. And one of them mentioned getting arrested. The other one, I don't know, something so silly. And then here I am with, I dated my high school English teacher. Hee. And they were both visibly like, it was a different reaction because growing up, when I would mention that, most people would respond of like the, oh, tell me everything, kind of like gossipy reaction.
Yeah.
And this was a reaction that was different than any other person. Like they were very serious. Like they didn't even nervous laugh. And then I don't remember how we wrapped up that day, but a few days later, Matt came to my office and was like, you know, that wasn't an okay situation. And I remember him telling me like, yeah, Nick really wanted me to report him. Because at the time, the teacher was still teaching at the school where I grew up. And he was like, yeah, he thinks that I should call and report him, but I'm not going to do that. And, you know, so I'm really glad that he didn't push or anything. But their reaction, and I hadn't told anyone else because the same kind of thing of what was happening in grad school is I was worried that people would be looking at me and thinking, well, this is a person who doesn't understand ethics or boundaries. And if she got involved with the teacher when she was a student, maybe she'll get involved with the student while she's a counselor. So I didn't tell a lot of people. And the reaction from both of them and from Matt, the counselor especially, was just so different. It was different than any other kind of reaction that I had experienced when people found out that I was with my former teacher. Oh, sorry. Digressing. So after I had this realization, then I also started talking about it with my therapist. We love therapy here, Blooming After Grooming. I really wish everyone, therapy has helped me get through some of life's biggest challenges. And my therapist, she had me do this exercise, which I had never done before. And she was like, I want you to tell yourself out loud your story. Like tell yourself, if you were talking to someone else, use third person. Diana was Diana was 16 years old when she met and then tell your story out loud. And that exercise was very enlightening, very hard. Like I don't cry a lot, and I remember crying. It felt so meta. It felt like I was like seeing myself for the first time in a way. And I remember having a few more sessions after that and telling my therapist, like I feel like I'm crawling out of my skin. Like I have this realization now and I don't know what to do with it. Like
Mm.
I I knew that I wanted to tell him in some way. I was like, I want him to know that I know now,
Mm-hmm.
that I get it now. I see now what it was that he abused me. He took advantage. He abused his position. Abused me. Yeah. Sorry. This is haven't talked about this in a while.
It's okay. Yeah, I think it's a lot to, well, because you're trying to remember it and then it's triggering in its own ways.
Yeah.
And yeah. And then you're thinking about talking in a recording. So yes, it's a weird experience. But I think that assignment from your therapist goes back to what we were talking about before, right? Which is the idea of empathizing with somebody else is easier than empathizing with yourself.
Oh.
By telling yourself the story in third person, it's much easier for you to be like, oh, that's so horrible that happened to that little girl. And then you go, oh fuck, I am that little girl. Like that's tough. Like that's a hard healing that inner child, man. Like it's such a cliche, but it's so very true and so very important.
Yeah, it is. And having empathy for other people is also what helped me get in the mindset of accepting that it wasn't my fault. So that's where I got stuck in the story that I was saying out loud to myself is I could not say out loud it wasn't my fault because I didn't believe it yet. I was still believing that, oh well, I drove to his apartment and I pursued him and I moved into his place and I did all these things. So I did play a part in it. And this is my fault and it's not entirely his fault and all this stuff, and it took a long, long time because I was able to say it's not my fault to my therapist. I was able to say it out loud to my friend, my roommate, but I just couldn't say it out loud to myself. And my roommate, she doesn't care if I use her name, Kristen, you know her.
What up, girl?
Hey.
Hey.
She said a few things to me that like really kind of just slapped me awake, a loving slap. Where she was like,
she is a delightfully blunt person. From one blunt person to another, I adore her. So she's
amazing.
A good friend to have.
She's also a Pisces. I am just surrounded by Pisces. I'm so blessed. But she's a really fantastic friend to have. I remember telling her, like what I was saying, like I was flirty with him. I pursued him. Me. And she goes, I had a teacher who everyone thought was so hot. And she is also a March baby. So she was like, I was about to turn 18 and I go to this teacher and I go, hey, Mr. So-and-so, I am turning 18 this weekend, kind of, like baiting him. And she goes, you know what he said to me? Happy birthday to you. And then that was it. And she goes, and she was like, you were a student. You were a kid. He didn't have to respond the way that he did. He should have responded the way that this other teacher did, which is like, I'm not even going to entertain what you are trying to do right now, young lady.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Set a boundary. And if you try again, I'm going to talk to the principal about you. And we're going to have to have a parent teacher conference about you trying to hit on me because it's inappropriate. Like that's the thing. But I think it's hard to let go. A, culturally, that's the story we're fed. B, trauma response, right? Like that's the story you tell yourself to not realize what happened. But C, that's also the story the teacher was feeding you. Because that's the story that motherfucker was telling the police and was telling investigators, right? Was that he was just
this 16-year-old.
Oh God, he was just helpless against these wily, sexually uncontrollable teens. Like that was literally his excuse to other adults who were investigating him, was that like, I just couldn't, I was just powerless against them. And it's like, motherfucker, even if that were true, which it's not, how pitiful that you're like trying to say that you have less willpower than a 16-year-old girl. go fuck yourself.
Yeah,
Like, what?
honestly.
It's an insane argument. But the reason I bring that rant up is that's the story that was fed to you for 9 fucking years through
Mhm.
that relationship that you were in with him, is that you came after him and there's nothing he could do. And and he wasn't being honest with you that he'd already done it once before with me. So I've never done this before. And you're so unique. And like, I would only do this for you and risk everything for you. I mean, it's just so manipulative top to bottom. So it makes sense that you would have a really hard time letting go of that
Yeah.
self-blame.
I certainly did. And she also asked me, because I was still a school counselor at the time. She goes, "What would you do if a student walked in and they said they didn't want to tell anyone because it's their fault, and they say they're in the same situation. There's a teacher who's trying to groom them, and they made some choices and now they don't want help because it's their fault. Like, would you support that, or would you be like, no, it's not your fault at all?" And it really took that kind of like, oh, duh, like I
Mhm.
wouldn't, for me to have the same empathy for myself. And of course, it took a little bit more work after that, but those conversations and hearing that from my best friend and the person I was living with at the time, like, made such a difference.
I think especially after you have experienced being in that space for so long, it's so hard to watch other people still be in that space, but you also know you have to let them get there on their own. It's it's a hard, but you also know the importance of people calling it out. Like, so it's that weird
Yes.
line of trying to be like, if you're not ready to acknowledge this, that's fine, but I want to tell you, this wasn't your fault. There's no excuse for what happened to you. It's okay to feel the way that you feel. It's such a hard line to walk, both sides of that, because you also don't want to be up in someone's face and be like,
Mhm.
you need to be going to therapy and like processing that. Like, they might not be ready, it may not ever be ready. Like, everybody has to get down their own path at their own speed.
I think once I was able to do that for myself and get that clarity for myself, everything just kind of started falling in line.
Mhm.
And this happened like around the time, the first few years of the pandemic. So there's a lot of other shit going on in the world too and in my life. And I took some time off work because I was having a mental breakdown. I mean, I really was. And I took a leave of absence and decided to do, with the support of my therapist, decided to do a partial hospitalization program to focus on my mental health. And so what I was doing, the processing that I was doing about the grooming and abuse kind of got put on hold because everything was kind of crumbling down.
Mhm.
But before I checked myself into the partial hospitalization program, I was working on another exercise with my therapist, which involved me writing him a letter, which I had planned on sending to him. And we'll talk about our various plans um, in a future episode. But I had planned on sending him this letter, and I was working on it when I just I had to take a step back and focus on my mental health. Um, but yeah, that letter eventually turned into an email that we sent a few different entities.
Oh, yeah.
But that's a episode for details for next time. Yeah, is it
Oh,
coming back to
girl.
you?
I told my husband, I was like, I got to get my timeline out, because I kept a psychotically detailed timeline of our, like, once we met and then all the steps that we took. And I was like, I got to refresh my memory, man, because it was a lot of twists and turns, so much stuff, so many steps. Yeah. So it's funny to me that our aha moments didn't happen at the exact same time, but they were within, a year or two of each other. But I feel like the stars did kind of align that you were in a slightly, I don't know, were you still in that program when I reached out to you?
I couldn't go to the program that day because I had to go get a COVID test.
That's
I was in
right.
that
It was you were
CVS.
still in the thick of it, which was partially why I was so cautious in that text. Not that I knew you. I didn't know that that was happening. But like
You didn't know
the
what's going on
text,
though. You didn't know me.
no, I didn't know anything about you. But like when I first texted you, the cautiousness of the way that I messaged you, which, listeners will know is like our intro to our episodes, our main episodes, is us and our first text message exchange, was just the idea of like, kind of what we were just talking about with other people of like, I don't know where you're at. Like, I don't know if you're still with this guy. Cause it's not like I couldn't Google internet. Are they still dating? Like, I didn't know if you're still dating. I didn't know if you were still drinking the Kool-Aid. I didn't know if you were angry and rearing to go. Like, I had nothing to really know like how you would receive that information. So it's crazy to think that I messaged you in the midst of all this like chaos in your own life. So I'm sorry if that added like a layer of insanity on an already really stressful time in your life.
It didn't. No,
Okay.
it really did. If anything, and I remember it was like maybe 2 weeks before I was done with the partial hospice with the PHP. So I don't know, maybe it would have if I hadn't been spending 8 hours a day for 3 weeks, working through my shit.
Yeah, maybe
But
it was really good timing.
It really was, honestly. Like I think once I set myself up like mentally and emotionally and was like investing in myself, nourishing my soul, I really felt like the universe, spirit, whatever, was giving me something back. It's Sarah, the
Aw.
universe brought me Sarah.
Well, and it's
And
true,
I was
like,
ready.
and that's the truth. Is like I remember saying to a close friend of mine at some point, like, "Oh, I just wish I would have got here faster." Like my aha moment. I wish this. I wish that. And I remember her saying, "But if you had got there 7 years ago, Diana wouldn't have been there to greet you. Like if you had gotten to that crossroads, you would have had to stand there alone for 7 years." She's like, "It was perfect. Like you guys found each other exactly when you were meant to find each other." And that's how it felt. Like it felt so kismet. Like and I feel like this whole fucking experience has just felt so kismet. Like the whole thing has just felt so like, yo, the universe wants you to do something. Go. Like it
Yeah.
just has felt so much bigger than us the whole time. And I feel like pieces have just keep falling in front of us. Not that we're not doing the work, but like I just feel like we have been very lucky. Yeah, I just feel like we've been very lucky. And I really, oh Diana, I'm getting verklempt. I just appreciate you so much. And I just really, we're so lucky. Like we're not.
I
This
know.
terrible thing happened to us.
But
like
we are.
we
in
are
some
so
ways.
lucky that
Yeah.
we found each other and that we get along so well. Like who gets to not only have a trauma buddy, but then your trauma buddy legitimately becomes your friend? Like that's just
Yeah.
that's a real
Vacation
perk.
together and
Yeah, no, I think we found each other at the exact time we were ready to find each other. And there's never a convenient time because this was like, I don't know, 4 months before I got married. And I remember someone in my family saying like, well, maybe you should just put all this off until after the wedding. And I remember being like, oh, okay,
because
I'll just,
what's that gonna do?
I'll just turn off my trauma. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, there was not a possibility. And we got so much done even before the wedding. It like we accomplished so much even just in such a short window of time. But yeah, I remember people kind of being like, "Ooh, this is bad timing." And I was like, "Well, you're not going to say that to somebody who's got cancer. Oh, we were about to go on vacation. This is really bad timing." Or like, I think sometimes people think that facing stuff because you didn't face it for so long, I think people think that's like a choice. And so when you're ready to face it, they think that's also a choice that you have control over. That because you spend, as we've learned, like the average age of disclosure for childhood sexual abuse is like 52 years old, right? So most people spend decades in the fog, behind the veil, whatever you want to call it. And I think that people that haven't experienced it think that is a conscious decision.
Oh, I see.
Right. And that when that breaks, that's also a conscious decision, and that you somehow have the capacity to turn it back off again. And you don't. Like
it doesn't work that way.
it doesn't work
You
that way.
can't
Like,
unsee what you've seen.
I don't know. I think that was an interesting initial response that a few people had surrounding me. It was kind of like, oh, this isn't good timing. You know,
Yeah.
you shouldn't have to be dealing with this right now. You should just get to be a happy bride. I'm like, yeah, I should get to be able to do that. That's not my problem though. Like, go tell that to the dude
Mhm.
that fucking abused me. Go tell him that I shouldn't have to be dealing with my sexual abuse a month before my wedding. Yeah, agreed. I'm not the person to yell at about that though. Like,
In
it's not a me
hindsight,
problem.
do you think it was, I mean, not ideal timing, but do you feel one way or the other that it did happen that way?
I think it was good for me to have to face it and have some more like upfront conversations with my then fiance, now husband, about everything. I think it was healthy, to kind of get that out before going into a marriage. I don't regret it. It didn't impact my day. I didn't think about it at all that day. Like, it wasn't on my mind. It was a perfect day. It was a wonderful wedding. Um, but no, it didn't negatively impact any part of it. And if anything, it maybe helped me enjoy it more because I wasn't stressed out about my wedding. Like, I didn't care if the save the dates didn't match the invitations because it didn't fucking matter. And I didn't care that my centerpieces were perfect. Not that I didn't care. Like, it was a cute wedding and it was all nice, but like, I didn't get caught up in all this shit that doesn't matter because I had something happening in my life that was so much bigger and so much more
Mm.
important that it really let me just truly be in the moment of enjoying, my loved ones who were there with me and like sharing my love for my husband with those people and dancing and eating cookies and having fun. Like, it really, I think anything kind of serious and negative in your life can really put shit into perspective and help you kind of like chill the fuck out about some stuff. So maybe it helped.
I'm glad that we spent this episode talking about our aha moments, because I guess I'm thinking, if someone is listening, who professionals out there who are doing research about um, dating violence, domestic violence, sexual abuse, coercion, manipulationship, any of that, I think having an idea of what led victims of abuse to these moments of clarity is
Mhm.
important to talk about. So
That would be
thank
a
you for
fascinating
sharing.
thing to study. I've never thought about that. Like,
Truly.
yeah,
Yeah.
what leads people. But here's the deal, Diana. I would say that is the lion's share of why you and I are doing this fucking podcast, because I think we both truly believe that these kinds of conversations are part of what leads people to those aha moments, right? And not only the people it's happened to, but their friends and their family members. Like, I know that I have loved ones that are listening to this podcast. Hey guys. And they haven't necessarily experienced something exactly like this. Unfortunately, many of them have. I mean, a lot of women that I know have experienced some form of violence or manipulation or abuse. Um, and not only helping them reconcile or kind of face what maybe has happened to them, but also helping them to recognize when it's happening to somebody else around them and how to have those conversations with those people and how to help maybe make those people feel seen in those moments where somebody's joking about, oh, well, I dated my high school English teacher, or haha, I lost my virginity in this super awful story, that's red flag city. But maybe listening to this or, other people's podcasts or reading books that we're mentioning on the podcast maybe gives those people the tools in that moment to say, hey, that's not okay. That thing that happened to you is not okay. And it's not right. And like, I'm here for you. Like, that's so fucking important. So I think we don't have the research because probably nobody's doing it, because God forbid anyone fund research that directly impacts women. But I think you and I are trying to facilitate that experience for people. And then there's also people that have already gone through this and just want to hear about it. And because who do they get to talk to about it, right? Like, how many people get to explain that moment for themselves? And hear it reflected back at themselves. Like I hope that it, I don't know, feels good or feels validating. I think it will, based off of the feedback we've been getting already from other survivors, has been pretty powerful. So I don't know. Let us know, people. We have an email address. We have an Instagram account. You can message us.
Do you have an aha moment you'd like to share? You don't have to, but if you want to, we will gladly listen. Also, I do sincerely apologize, and I really wish I could give candy to everyone who has come back after hearing my nose just whistle for so long. In one of the recent episodes, I was like, if I was listening to this podcast, I would throw my phone across my room.
I did
My
not
nose
use your nose whistle. I would say the only thing I ever noticed about you is I feel like you get animated and start banging the table.
Oh, I know.
Sometimes.